Hi viewers, this is Angela Murjani from Kasturba Gandhi College in Hyderabad, and I welcome you to today's study, which is on a poem that's of great significance to us in our contemporary world. I believe and I do hope that by the end of this study, you're going to have to change your opinion about certain issues. In this day and age in which we live, we are being constantly told in increasingly emphatic terms that unless we take care of the environment in which we live and unless we are more considerate towards our surroundings, mankind is headed towards sure and certain disaster. In the light of growing worldwide concerns regarding this very significant issue, Gieve Patel's poem on killing a tree gives us a new perspective altogether about preserving the environment. In fact, he dramatizes man's destruction of the flora and fauna that surround us by giving a special emphasis and focus to the plant kingdom. Gieve Patel was born in 1940 in then Bombay, and he studied in St. Xavier's School and later went on to graduate from Grant's Medical College in Bombay. He is a registered general practitioner who works as a doctor in his home city and also renders service in rural India. So in addition to practicing as a doctor, Gieve Patel is an acclaimed and well-known poet, playwright and artist. So far, he has compiled several anthologies of his poems, among them Poems, How Do You Withstand It and Mirrored Mirroring, along with the publication of 3 of his plays. One anthology that contains both plays and poems was published in 2007 and is called Mr. Behram and Other Plays. An interesting fact about Gieve Patel is that every year he conducts a poetry writing workshop for school children in the Rishi Valley School in Andhra Pradesh. He has put all of these poems together and compiled them as a book called Poetry with Young People. This is an amazing achievement for someone who has had no formal training in literature or the arts. Patel's poetry deals primarily with the gross inequalities that are part of the social structure of India, grieving that these should continue even long years after independence. He is also moved by the violence and pain that are part of human existence, in spite of the evolution that human beings give themselves credit for. Another important theme that we are going to study in today's poem is man's wrong conception of nature in the way that he responds and reacts to the plant and animal kingdom. Patel makes use of many images from the human body. He talks about skin, leprosy, veins and roots, and these evoke powerful images in the mind of any reader because we are all so conscious and aware of our physical entities. The tone that Patel uses is cold and objective and often makes him to appear to be without emotion or sentimentality. But this is quite the opposite of the truth. The reason that he deliberately makes use of this term is that he wants us to see the topic that he's dealing with as if it were a patient being viewed by a doctor. And often the response that he gets from his readers is to shock them into a new perspective. As a doctor and a surgeon, Patel is clinical in his observations and he uses great precision in the description of his subjects. Now I invite you to experience that shock which Gieve Patel wants to give you from the reading of his poem on killing a tree. On Killing a Tree by Gieve Patel. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown, slowly consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. So hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs, miniature boughs, which if unchecked will expand again to former size. No, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied and pulled out, snapped out or pulled out entirely, out from the earth cave, and the strength of the tree exposed, the source white and wet, the most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. Then the matter of scorching and choking in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering. And then it is done. In my opinion, Gieve Patel uses images that are so strongly violent to describe the killing of a tree because he wants to portray this as a murder. He is tired of the complacency exhibited by people who perceive trees as a lower life form than animals or humans. And through this poem, he wants to shock us into seeing trees also as a part of the chain of life on this earth, as a vital and integral part of nature. Just because they are different does not put them at a lower status than animals or human beings. And this is the primary goal that Patel wants to achieve through this poem. He wants us to see the killing of a tree as a significant act of murder, just the same as the killing of an animal or a human being. Patel's view reminds me so much of an Indian physicist and plant biologist, Subhash Chandra Bose, who lived about 100 years ago and for the very first time presented the possibility that plants too have emotions and feelings. He did numerous experiments and in fact he had to create those instruments himself in order to demonstrate scientifically that plants too feel, they respond and they react to the people who are around them. He actually did experiments to show how plants react to poison when poison is injected into their veins. And he also studied extensively the mimosa plant, which in common language is called as the touch-me-not plant. If you put your hands over the touch-me-not plant or the mimosa, it pretends to be dead because it doesn't want to be harmed by human hands. It's very interesting to watch this, the way it's demonstrated in the video that you can watch, and I've given the link at the end of this lesson. You can have a look at it. On Killing a Tree may also be seen as a conservation poem because it so dramatically brings home the dangers of deforestation and the unmindful felling of trees all over the world, which is leading to global warming or the greenhouse effect, which increases carbon levels in the atmosphere. And a lot of people are beginning to think, especially scientists who are studying the environment, that potentially this could be the one reason for the Earth's destruction in a very short space of time. We shall now do a stanza by stanza analysis of the poem. Stanza 1 describes the long drawn out and slow process by which a tree grows. It has taken many years to achieve its present status as a tree, and in the process of growth it has consumed nutrients from the earth, and in being nourished by the earth's crust, it has in turn succeeded in growing out of it, reaching upwards and outwards towards other sources of enrichment. It looks to the sun and draws its needs from the sun, increasing in strength and vitality. It is common knowledge that the sun plays a vital role in the development of a plant, being essential to its growth and sustenance. This takes place day in and day out, week after week, month after month, and year after year. A plant also requires air. And in receiving from the atmosphere, a wonderful give and take relationship is established, wherein the plant takes what it needs and in return gives back to the atmosphere what it requires. The poet seems to suggest that there is this wonderful relationship that is established of mutual interdependence between all aspects of nature. Hence, because the tree has grown over a period of time, taking in sun, air, water, and from the atmosphere, it is not so easy to kill it. One jab will not do it. One stroke of a knife cannot accomplish it, because in absorbing from the sun, the earth, the water, and the air, these essential elements have nourished the tree, have gone into comprising what the tree makes up. Therefore, when a man pits himself against a tree, he is actually pitting himself against the very elements of nature. Therefore, it cannot be easy for a man to kill a tree. The tree puts up a struggle because all of nature that has gone into the tree joins in that battle and helps the tree to fight against this death which man wants to decree and speak over one of the aspects of nature. In this stanza, the poet lends a beautiful poetic interpretation to the scientific process of photosynthesis, by which plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air by day and they use it to produce glucose or energy for themselves, giving off the byproduct of oxygen. It seems like the poet wants to contrast this with human beings who know only how to take from nature, taking all and receiving from nature and being enriched, yet giving little or nothing back to nature, and in fact leaving nature impoverished at the end of the day. So Gieve Patel really wants to bring it home to us humans that if we don't stop this madness, there's going to be a time when we humans are going to have to pay the price for what we are doing. We have to remember that we are also a part of nature, and just as all nature cooperates to sustain other aspects of itself, so must we human beings consider the trees and the plants of this planet. Stanzas 2 and 3 are replete with verbs which are images of violence. Hack, chop, scorch, twist, pull, tie, snap. The poet uses these words to deliberately show us the intent of human beings towards trees. There is no remorse and no guilt just because these things are done to trees. If you replace trees with an animal, how would you feel? What if these words were used for an animal like, say, a dog or a cat? Pull, twist, tug, tie, scorch, snap. It would make you squirm. You would never think of it. How come then human beings can be so insensitive to trees? Is it just because the color of their blood, their sap is not red? Is that why it is so easy for human beings to be so harsh and so cruel towards trees? This is what Gieve Patel wants to achieve through this poem. He wants to sensitize us to the pain and the discomfort that is experienced by trees. It kind of reminds me once more of an experiment that was done by Bose, in which he actually examined and recorded a cauliflower that was screaming as it was dunked into a pot of boiling water. It is time, dear friends, that we realize that plants also have life. Just because their life form is different does not mean that we should minimize its significance. Stanza 2 describes the unrelenting efforts of man to kill the tree. He stabs it, he chops it, he chokes it, but the tree puts up its own fight. The tree establishes that it also has a right to life. Every time that human beings do something, the tree quickly heals over. The bark creates itself again. Whenever a branch is chopped off, new twigs and new branches grow in its place. It's as if the struggle of the tree is so real, it stands up against the might of powerful man to destroy it. It refuses to accept the verdict of death which has been pronounced by man upon itself. This is how nature works. stanza 3 takes the act of annihilation or destruction to its ultimate and complete end. Man, in recognizing that the very life of the tree is hid in the root, then attacks the root. This root, the poet says, is covered by the earth. The earth is symbolic of Mother Earth, and that part which hides the root of the tree is the cave in which it is kept safe from the view of man. So this root which anchors the tree is pulled out, snapped or dug out until it becomes vulnerable to the destructive acts of human beings. In comparing Mother Earth and that cave or womb of the root to a woman who is nurturing a baby in her womb, the parallel is taken to its uttermost extent. Just as a mother nurtures and protects her baby and gives it that safe space in which it can grow while it is not yet ready to face the world, in the same way, Mother Earth protects the roots of a tree and seems to say to the human beings who are outside on the earth, thus far and no further. There is a boundary beyond which man cannot go. So man can chop the branches, man can destroy the leaves, he can take the fruit, he can ransack the tree. But so long as the roots are covered in the womb of Mother Earth, the tree is safe. But finding this out means that there is one more piece of knowledge which man can use to ultimately destroy the tree. That's why he gets after the root. He wants to pull it out by its root, because that white and wet root is where the very life of the tree is hidden. This inner white and wet part of the tree contrasts with the hard, leprous bark of the tree on the outside. And it is like the poet wants to say that no matter what man may do to the outside, to the bark, the tree will not die until man gets to that inner vulnerable part of the tree which is hidden in its root. When that happens, the poet says its strength is exposed. This is kind of reminiscent of the story of Samson and Delilah. This is a story from the book of Judges from the Bible, which you can read, which I've given the reference for later, where Samson is attacked by his enemies through a woman. The enemy puts her in charge of trying to find out where Samson's strength is hidden. Samson tells her lies on 3 occasions, but finally, through her pestering him, he finally reveals the secret of his strength to Delilah, and he lets her know that his strength is in his hair. Upon coming to know this, obviously, the enemy shave off his hair and they take Samson captive. Going back to this story where the strength is hidden in the hair, the strength of the tree is in the root, and once this is revealed or made known to man, he gets to the root of it literally and attacks that part where the vitality and the real energy of the tree is hidden. The last part of stanza 3 describes the extreme conditions to which the root of the tree is subjected once it is extracted from the earth. Each of these is an act of extreme violence and represents the torture that humans find it possible to put the tree through, just because its blood does not resemble their own. The root is scorched, dried in the sun, deprived of all nourishment and water. Then it is allowed to turn brown, become completely hardened until it twists and curls up, completely devoid of life. Then the poet concludes, "It is done." That brief statement, "it is done," encompasses the tone of triumph in the struggle which the humans had against the tree. They have won. It is a victory, but this is a hollow victory, Patel wants us to know, because it is a temporary victory in depleting the resources of Mother Earth. It is the humans who are going to be the biggest losers at the end of the day. Through the poem on killing a tree, Gieve Patel seeks to draw our attention to the very real predicament of global warming, which is the result of the unhindered felling of trees from all the major forest reserves of the world. This has sadly resulted in the world is already facing the impact of this thoughtless felling of trees because it has caused the change of climatic conditions, increased flooding, unseasonal rain, unprecedented droughts, rising temperatures worldwide, melting of ice caps that could lead to inundation of low-lying areas, and the destruction of the natural habitats of several species, which would eventually lead to their extinction. Upsetting the ecological balance of the planet will ultimately impact human life in many negative ways. For the moment, man seems completely unconcerned about what he is doing to his environment. Cities are expanding and forests are being cleared to make way for more homes, more housing, more industry, more factories, more highways, but little or no thought is given to our future generations. Fossil fuels are being consumed with no thought to the future. All of this callousness, this careless attitude is going to reflect very badly on the future of our planet. However, man is not going to get away scot-free, and eventually he is going to have to pay a very heavy price for his careless and callous attitude towards nature. Already, the statistics are very alarming. A 2005 report on the number of trees that have been cut down each year tells us that about 60,000 square kilometers of forest are cut to the ground each year. That is about the size of the whole country of Ireland. Now, these statistics are only approximate because many countries don't record exact numbers in these respects. Man has become so dependent upon trees as a source of wood, for wood is used for a whole range of purposes, from the purpose of cutting wood down for fuel and paper to lumber. There are a whole range of things for which human beings need trees. Environmentalist activists have suggested that around 100 trees are required to be chopped to produce 50,000 pages of paper. And it's not even just about the trees that are destroyed. Tons of water and electricity are utilized as well. Apart from the fact that when chlorine-based technology is used in the manufacture of paper, mercury is released, which is toxic and highly dangerous to the environment. Maybe it's about time we made use of technology to digitize records, and in the process, we will be helping to preserve the environment. In view of all of these facts, Gieve Patel's poem on killing a tree is possibly the most significant wake-up call to every citizen of the 21st century. It is time that we woke up and took serious note of our environment. It is time to halt the senseless and needless chopping of trees, and it is time to do something to preserve this home planet of ours in all of its beauty and wonder. This earth which we inhabit is our home, and we ought to look after it even as we do our own private living spaces. Not only will we control the damage that has been done thus far, but we also need to change our attitude towards trees and stop thinking of them as a lower life form. The same compassion that we use in thinking about animals and humans needs to be extended to the plant kingdom around us. Unless we start treating the environment with more respect, this planet may not be a habitable home for our future generations. So if we want to leave a legacy on to our children and our children thereafter, that we have been responsible people who lived on this earth and took care of it and looked after it, then we need to start drastically changing the way we deal with our environment right away.